At 14, my dad hit me twice and threw me into a blizzard because of my sister's lies. My mom found out the truth, took me in, and tore the family apart. Years later, they've lost everything, and I've built a life they'll never enter. Hey, Reddit. When I was 14, my dad believed my sister's performance over my actual alibi, hit me twice, and threw me into a blizzard. I survived, rebuilt everything, and moved on. But the people who broke me weren't finished. Before we get there, let me start at the beginning. This happened in Wisconsin when I was 14. December, the middle of the worst blizzard in 3 years. The kind where the weather report stops sounding dramatic and starts sounding like instructions. Life-threatening, do not travel. I was at the kitchen table around 3:30, grinding through algebra. Quadratics, pure misery. Our teacher used an online portal that logged activity, so I had it open too, clicking through problems as I worked. My sister Brittany was 17 and had been on Dad since breakfast about driving her to the mall. The whining didn't stop. It just changed volume. Dad kept saying no. He was a real estate agent and lived for image and reputation, but even he could see the roads turning into death traps. Ice everywhere, visibility collapsing, wind picking up by the hour. Brittany didn't handle no well. She wore people down until they caved, and Dad usually folded. Not this time. She stomped upstairs around 4 and slammed her door hard enough to rattle the hallway frames. I stayed at the table. Dad went back to his paper. Normal Saturday, until it wasn't. Dad had a pattern with us. Brittany broke curfew and he laughed it off. I forgot the trash once and got a 10-minute lecture about responsibility and the family name. That morning, Brittany left dishes in the sink. Nothing. I left my jacket on a chair and got told I was making the house look like a disaster. Mom was out of town taking care of her sister after knee surgery. She'd left Wednesday and wasn't supposed to be back until Tuesday. Brittany absolutely planned around that. Mom was a paramedic and had spent years spotting liars. She would have asked questions Dad didn't. Brittany had always been the favorite. Not subtle about it. She got a car at 16. I got a used bike from a garage sale. She got the bigger room and her own bathroom. I learned early. Stay quiet. Don't make waves. Expect less. Then, maybe 20 minutes after she went upstairs, she came back down. It couldn't have been much past 4:20. Her shirt was torn at the collar, makeup smeared. Mascara ran down her face in perfect dramatic streaks. She was sobbing so hard she could barely stand, hyperventilating like she'd been dragged through hell. Dad's newspaper slipped out of his hands and hit the floor. Then Brittany started talking. Between gasps, between sobs. She said I'd followed her upstairs. Said I shoved her into the wall because I was jealous she was Dad's favorite. Said I grabbed her shirt and ripped it. Grabbed her face. Told her I wished she'd never been born. She said I'd been sending threatening texts for months, cornering her when our parents weren't around. That she'd been too scared to say anything because I promised I'd make it worse. Every word was a lie. I tried explaining. Fast, panicked, pointing at the table like it could save me. My homework was spread out with fresh pencil marks, half-finished problems. My textbook was open. The portal was right there, logged in. I hadn't moved except to sharpen my pencil. Dad could see me from his chair the entire time. And I don't even have texting, I said. It's an old flip phone, calls only. And I don't even have social media accounts. Dad knew that. He was the one who refused to upgrade it. For half a second, his eyes flicked toward the homework, toward the screen, toward the shape of my phone in my pocket. One tiny moment where he could have checked, could have thought. Then his face hardened. He wasn't hearing me. He was hearing a story about a son who hurts girls. Something that would stain his reputation. Something people would whisper about. The idea hit his ego like a personal attack. Stop lying, he said. You're embarrassing this family. I kept talking, kept pointing at the obvious timeline, kept trying to make him use his brain for 5 seconds. Nothing worked. He crossed the kitchen in 3 strides, grabbed my arm hard enough to leave marks, and yanked me out of the chair. My water glass flew, hit the tile, and shattered. The crash made Brittany's sobbing get louder, like she'd turned the performance up to match the moment. Dad started yelling about what kind of person I was. How dare I hurt my sister? How people would think. The family name, his house, his rules. The louder he got, the less human he sounded. His grip tightened. I cried out, and he took it as more acting. You think this is funny? He snapped. You think you can embarrass this family? The first slap came out of nowhere. Open palm, full force. My head snapped sideways. I tasted blood where my teeth cut my cheek. Dad had never hit me before. Not once. The second slap sent me backward into the counter. My hips smashed the edge and pain flared up my side like electricity. Through the blur, I saw Brittany in the doorway. She wasn't crying anymore, not even a little. No shaking breath, no sobs, just calm, watching. arms crossed, a small, satisfied smile sitting on her face like she'd won something. That's when I knew. This wasn't a tantrum. This was an impulse. She'd built it, waited until mom was gone, torn her own shirt, smeared her own makeup, picked a story she knew would push dad's buttons, because tears and drama always worked on him, especially if it let him feel like a protector. And dad didn't need proof. He just needed a villain. Dad dragged me to the front door, hand clamped on my upper arm like a vice. I wasn't begging, wasn't going to give him the satisfaction, just trying to get him to think for 5 seconds. Look at the actual timeline. The storm outside had gotten significantly worse. Wind screaming around the house like something alive. Snow piling against the railing faster than I'd ever seen. He shoved me outside. I was wearing jeans, a thin hoodie I'd been wearing all weekend, and falling apart sneakers. No coat, no gloves, no hat. The cold was instant and brutal. Knocked the wind out of me. Made my chest seize up. That kind of cold that hurts immediately. Penetrates every layer within seconds. Door slammed. I heard the deadbolt slide with this final, terrible click that cut through the wind. I didn't pound on the door. Didn't scream and beg. What's the point? He'd made his choice. Through the window, I could see Brittany in the entryway. Arms still crossed, that satisfied smirk on her face. She saw me looking. Her smile got wider. Then she turned and walked away. My phone was in my pocket, but useless. It must have taken the hit when my hip slammed into the counter. Screen cracked, wouldn't turn on. Dead or broken, didn't matter which. 2 options. Stand there and freeze to death, or move. My girl best friend Aurora lived 5 blocks away. On a normal day, 10-minute walk tops, in a blizzard with visibility at maybe 5 feet and snow coming down like a wall? Different situation entirely. Temperature was around 5 degrees, according to the weather report that morning. Wind chill probably -20 by now. I found out later it was even worse than I thought. I started walking. Had to. Standing still meant hypothermia. Meant dying on my own porch, while my family watched TV inside. Snow was past my ankles immediately. Drifts came up to my waist in spots. I fell within the first block, hands plunging into snow so deep I couldn't find bottom. Had to dig myself out. My fingers went numb fast, that pins and needles feeling turning into nothing. The wind was violent, not just strong, but unpredictable, pushing from every direction, disorienting. Couldn't see more than a few feet ahead. Streetlights were just fuzzy halos in the whiteout, barely visible through the snow. Every house I passed had lights on, warm yellow glows through curtained windows, families eating dinner, watching TV, normal Saturday stuff. Could see people moving around, kids playing, completely unaware of what was happening outside. I wanted to knock on every door, but shame kept me moving. How do you explain this? Your dad threw you out because your sister lied and he believed her without asking a single question? Who believes that? Second block, I tried one house. Walked up to the porch, raised my hand to knock. Saw the curtain move. Someone looked out. Then the curtain dropped back. No one came to the door. By the third block, my thinking wasn't straight anymore. Cold does that. Messes with your brain. Kept forgetting where I was going. Had to remind myself. Aurora's house. 5 blocks. Keep walking. Don't stop. There was this moment, maybe 30 seconds, where I thought about just stopping. Sitting down in the snow, closing my eyes, letting it happen. Would have been easy. Peaceful even. But that felt like letting Brittany win. Like proving her right somehow. So I kept moving. Aurora's house appeared through the snow like a mirage. Porch light on, this warm glow cutting through the storm. Most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. I stumbled up the driveway, fell twice climbing the porch steps. Legs just gave out. Wouldn't hold my weight. Had to crawl the last few steps on hands and knees. Couldn't knock because my hands wouldn't work. Fingers wouldn't bend. So I kicked the door with whatever strength I had left. Weak thumps I was sure no one would hear. Then Mrs. Miller opened the door. She took one look and gasped. Sharp intake of breath, hand flying to her mouth. Pulled me inside without asking anything. Just grabbed my hoodie and hauled me over the threshold. Her hands felt burning hot against my frozen face. She yelled for her husband. Mr. Miller came running from the living room, stopped dead when he saw me. Jesus Christ, he said. What happened? They wrapped me in blankets from the hall closet, sat me by their fireplace. The heat was almost unbearable at first, made my skin prickle and sting. They brought me something hot to drink, but I couldn't hold the mug. Fingers wouldn't cooperate. Mrs. Miller had to hold it for me. For the first hour, they didn't let me drift off. Mrs. Miller kept talking to me, making me answer questions, making sure I stayed responsive. Aurora came downstairs in sweatpants and a hoodie, took one look, and her eyes went huge. Oh my God, she said quietly, just stood there staring. The Millers didn't push for explanation right away, just focused on warming me up, making sure I didn't have serious frostbite. Mrs. Miller checked my face, jaw tightening when she saw the handprint on my cheek, the swelling on my jaw. Mr. Miller brought dry clothes, thick wool socks, oversized sweater. I shook the whole time, teeth clacking hard enough to hurt. Eventually, Mrs. Miller asked what happened. Gentle, careful, not pushing. I gave them the clipped version. Brittany lied about me attacking her. Dad believed her without asking questions. Hit me twice, threw me outside in the storm, locked the door. I walked here. Maybe 30 minutes, maybe 40. Time got weird. Mr. Miller's face went dark. Dangerous quiet. Mrs. Miller looked like she wanted to hit something. We need to call someone, Mr. Miller said. Call his mom first, Mrs. Miller said. They started arguing. Mr. Miller wanted to call 911 immediately. Mrs. Miller thought they should try to reach Mom first. If we call the police, they might send him back there tonight. They won't send him back if they see those bruises. Mr. Miller pulled out his phone and dialed 911. Put it on speaker. The dispatcher answered. He explained the situation. Kid showed up half frozen with visible injuries from assault. Ambulances are delayed because of the storm, the dispatcher said. Keep him warm, keep him awake, watch his fingers and toes. An officer might get there faster than medical. We're triaging life-threatening calls first, the dispatcher added. Roads are blocked in multiple areas. An officer may not reach you for several hours. Mr. Miller muted the phone and swore under his breath. They're slammed. They said it could take hours. Mrs. Miller's face tightened. Hours, she repeated quietly. Okay. Then we do everything ourselves until they get here. She got her camera, took photos of the handprint on my face, the bruising on my jaw, the marks on my arm, photos of my wet, inadequate clothing. Mr. Miller wrote down what time I arrived, what I was wearing, basic timeline. Evidence, he said, in case you need it later. Aurora helped me to the guest room around 9, told me where the bathroom was, left the door cracked. Once the shaking slowed and I could answer clearly again, they finally let me lie down. Door cracked, lights on, checking me every so often. My parents are going to follow up with your mom as soon as we can reach her. But you're safe here tonight. Thanks. I couldn't sleep though. Kept checking the window, checking the door. Made sure it was locked. Around 1 in the morning, I heard the house phone ring. Mr. Miller answered. Who is this? Pause. No, we're not sending him out. It's a blizzard. He's staying here. His voice got harder. I don't care what your side is. Your son showed up here half frozen with a handprint on his face. Another pause. Don't even think about it. If you show up at this house, I'm calling the police immediately. Around 2, I heard a car outside. Footsteps on the porch. Knock at the door. Mr. Miller answered. Different voice this time. Official. Evening. We got a call about a runaway juvenile at this address, and we also got a separate call from this address about an injured minor. He's not a runaway. His father assaulted him and threw him outside in a blizzard. We still need to do a welfare check. In our town, the station was close, and they were already out responding to storm calls. Mr. Miller appeared at my door. Police want to talk to you. You don't have to go back with them. I came out. 2 cops in the living room. They looked at my face, at the bruises, and their expressions shifted. What happened to your face? The older cop asked. My dad hit me. Why? My sister lied about me attacking her. He believed her. Where's your mom? A few hours away, taking care of her sister. The cops exchanged looks. Your dad called saying you ran away. Said he was worried about you. I didn't run away. He threw me out. The older cop made notes. Took photos of the bruises themselves. We're filing a report. Your mom can work with us on next steps when she gets here. After they left, Aurora knocked quietly. Can't sleep either? Not really. She sat on the floor against the wall. Not too close, giving me space. My parents won't let anything happen to you. Neither will I. You can't promise that. No, but we'll try really hard. That actually helped. Mrs. Miller got through to Mom around 7:30 the next morning. Found a mutual neighbor who had Mom's sister's number. Mom arrived at the Miller house by 10. She left before sunrise and white-knuckled the whole drive. When she saw me, her face did this thing I'd never seen before. This mix of grief and pure fury. Mrs. Miller showed her the photos. Walked her through everything. Mom looked at each photo, jaw getting tighter with every image. She hugged me so hard I thought my ribs would break. Then pulled back, studied my face, traced the bruises with her fingertips so gently it barely registered. We're going to the hospital. Right now. I'm fine. You're not fine. You have potential frostbite and documented assault injuries. We're going. She took me to the ER. Got everything documented officially. Doctor examined the bruises, noted the pattern, handprint on left cheek, spreading bruise on jaw, finger-shaped marks on right upper arm, checked my hands and feet for frostbite. Minor damage to 3 fingers, 2 toes. The ER doctor made notes, lots of notes, said she was required to file a report. Mandated reporter. Mom was already ahead of her. I'm calling CPS as soon as we leave here. Mom bought me a basic smartphone that afternoon. No fancy stuff, because she refused to risk me being unreachable again. We got back to the Miller house around 1. Mom made the call to CPS from her car, gave them specific details. The CPS worker sounded overworked and tired. Has this happened before? No. Any history of violence in the home? Not physical violence, no. They scheduled a home visit for Monday. Said they'd send someone to talk to Dad. Then she drove us home. Well, to the house. Wasn't home anymore. When we walked in, Dad was sitting at the kitchen table with coffee and the Sunday paper. Still in his bathrobe. The broken glass from yesterday had been swept up. Kitchen looked normal. He looked up. Face went from surprise to guilty when he saw me. The bruises were spectacular by then. Purple and yellow. He opened his mouth. Mom held up one hand. Don't talk. Listen. Her voice was quiet, but had this power behind it that filled the room. Brittany appeared in the doorway, still in pajamas. She froze when she saw us. Mom turned to look at her. Whatever Brittany saw in that look made her actually take a step back. Mom laid it out. Cold, clinical, zero emotion. The timeline proved I was at the kitchen table. The Miller family would testify to my condition when I arrived. Photos documented the injuries. Medical records confirmed minor frostbite, exposure injuries. Mandated reporter filing from the ER police report from the welfare check. 5 blocks in that weather was potentially deadly. Temperature was 5 degrees. Wind chill -20. In those conditions, minutes matter. He could have died out there. Dad tried interrupting. I was protecting. You were protecting your pride. You ignored obvious contradictions because it was easier than admitting you were wrong. She turned to Brittany. Tell the truth. Now. All of it. Silence stretched out. Finally, Brittany's shoulders dropped. The confession came out grudgingly. She wanted to go to the mall. Got mad about being told no. Decided to create a distraction big enough that Dad would forget the original argument. And she knew the fastest way to control him was to make him angry at me. Yes, she ripped her own shirt. Yes, she smudged her own makeup. Yes, she made up the entire story. All of it. Fabricated. Dad's face went gray. Then Mom snapped. Just for a second. All that controlled fury broke through. Do you understand what you did? You nearly killed him. Your son. Because you were too proud to ask one question. One. Dad flinched. Get out of my sight. Pack your things and get out. She turned away, pressed her palms against the counter, taking deep breaths. After maybe 10 seconds, she turned back around. Voice controlled again. Sorry, that wasn't helpful. But it kind of was. Mom's response was systematic once she got control back. You're moving out, today. Papers get filed tomorrow morning. I already spoke to an attorney, and everything from the hospital and police is documented. Dad tried arguing. Mom's face stayed granite hard. You nearly killed your son. That's catastrophically poor judgment. Brittany got her own consequences. You'll finish the school year here. Then you're moving in with your father. Brittany started protesting. Mom cut her off. You saw him freezing on the porch and smiled? That wasn't a mistake. That was cruelty. Dad packed under Mom's supervision. He tried apologizing to me 3 or 4 times. Voice cracking. The words felt hollow. Sorry doesn't undo assault. He reached for a framed photo on the mantel. One of Mom and me, like he still had a claim to it. Mom's hand shot out. That's mine. Keep packing. He pulled his hand back. Went back to his suitcase without arguing. He left around 3. Mom stood by the door watching until his car disappeared. Then she made more calls. Emergency protective order. Emergency custody hearing. Divorce attorney. Documentation. 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 The CPS worker came Monday afternoon. She interviewed me separately. Asked blunt questions. Did your father hit you? Yes. More than once? Twice. She made notes. Lots of notes. She established a safety plan. Dad couldn't be in the same residence as me. No unsupervised contact. Weekly check-ins with CPS. Dad had to take anger management classes. If he violated any part of the plan, CPS would report it to the court and law enforcement, and the judge could impose criminal consequences. Dad signed it. You could see him seething. Mom filed for emergency custody that same day. Filed for divorce Tuesday morning. Dad hired his own attorney. Tried to fight it. His lawyer advised him not to. You assaulted a minor and locked him outside in a blizzard. You're lucky you're not facing criminal charges. School started back up the following Monday. That's when things got really ugly. Someone told the school what happened. By Tuesday morning, everyone knew some version. The story got distorted. Some thought I'd actually attacked Brittany. Others heard I'd been arrested. Group chats spread rumors faster than I could track. The school pulled me into a meeting Wednesday. Second period. Had to walk past everyone staring. They used careful language, safety protocol, precautionary measures. We wanted to check in, Principal Hayes said. I'm fine. The counselor, Ms. Rivera, leaned forward. This has been difficult. Want to talk? No. Hayes shifted. Standard questions. Any violent thoughts? No. You understand why people might be concerned? Not really, since I didn't do anything wrong. Rivera got this pained look. We're trying to make sure everyone feels safe. Everyone meaning Brittany, among others. They changed my schedule that day. Moved me out of 2 classes with Brittany. Changed lunch periods, different gym section. They didn't say the word predator, but they didn't have to. Teachers watched me differently, cautious. Girls kept extra space. Moved seats. Asked to switch lab partners. Amanda made it obvious. We'd been biology partners all year. Day I came back, she asked to reassign. Said she'd be more comfortable. Teacher approved without question. Lunch became isolation. Corner table, ate alone. I started bringing a book. Tried to make it look like a choice instead of exile. Aurora stuck by me. Sat with me at lunch Thursday. Hey, she said. You don't have to. I know. Some of her friends backed off. She didn't care. I heard her arguing with one of them in the hallway once. She came to lunch with red eyes the next day and sat down anyway. One day after school, Brittany cornered Aurora by the parking lot. You should be careful around him. He's not stable. Aurora looked at her for a long moment. You're worried about me. Yes? After what he did? After what you lied about, you mean? I didn't lie. Your story doesn't even make sense. He had a flip phone with no texting. Your timeline was impossible. You got caught in 3 different lies. So no, I'm not worried about him. I'm worried about whatever's wrong with you. Brittany's face went red. She turned and walked away. Meanwhile, Brittany filed a complaint saying she felt unsafe. Said I'd been staring at her in the C-Wing hallway. School investigated. Pulled footage. Found nothing. Because my locker was in A-Wing. Physically impossible. After the second time they found nothing, even staff started looking at her differently. But the complaint did damage anyway. Coach Wilson pulled me aside before gym. Said there'd been concerns about the locker room. Asked if I'd change in the bathroom stall. I didn't argue. One teacher believed me, though. Mr. Patterson, history, called me aside. I know what happened. I've taught Brittany before. If you need a character statement, let me know. Why would you do that? Because truth matters. In March, Patterson submitted my name for a regional academic competition. I got accepted. Started preparing. Finally had something to focus on. 2 days before competition, Hayes called me in. I'm sorry. Your spot's being revoked. Why? I earned this. School board complaint. Having you represent the school sends the wrong message. I didn't commit violence. Every investigation cleared me. Optics matter more than facts to them. Lost the competition spot. Dad violated the protective order in February. Showed up at school dismissal. Security escorted him off. Second violation in March. Grocery store. Dad blocked our path. I just want to talk. You need to leave, Mom said. Store manager made Dad leave. Judge extended the protective order. Warned third violation meant jail. One of Dad's friends showed up at our house. Greg, I work with your husband. Just wanted to talk. There's nothing to discuss. I'm sure it's a misunderstanding. He made a mistake under stress. I've known him for years. He assaulted my son and threw him into a blizzard. Mom shut the door. The custody hearing happened in late March. Dad showed up in his best suit, playing respectable businessman. Clean shave, pressed shirt. His lawyer kept saying it was just a concerned parent who overreacted under stress. Temporary lapse in judgment. Understandable given the circumstances. It sounded rehearsed, like he'd said the same speech 100 times. Mom's lawyer presented the core evidence. Photos from that night showing the handprint bruise, the swelling, the marks. ER documentation listing every injury. Miller family testimony about my condition when I arrived. Hypothermic, disoriented, physical trauma. School records showing Brittany's history of manipulation and false reports against other students. The homework platform timestamp came with a disclaimer. Times are approximate and may vary by up to 5 minutes. Dad's lawyer jumped on that immediately. Tried to create reasonable doubt. Neighbors' doorbell footage had been overwritten. 30-day rolling storage. We were past that window. Not perfect, but the physical evidence was overwhelming. I had to testify. Sat in that chair feeling everyone's eyes on me. Dad's lawyer tried the sympathy angle first. Don't you love your father? No. He looked surprised. Don't you think that's harsh? He nearly killed me. That seems pretty harsh too. Different angle. Your father made a mistake under stress, didn't he? We all make mistakes. I looked directly at Dad. His face was carefully neutral, but I could see the tension in his jaw. He ignored obvious evidence because it was easier than admitting he was wrong. He chose his pride over my safety. That's not a mistake. That's a character problem. Dad's jaw tightened. His lawyer moved on quickly. Because it involved allegations between siblings, the court appointed a guardian ad litem for Brittany, standard procedure when minors make accusations against each other. Brittany testified. The guardian ad litem advised against it, but Dad insisted. Thought she could charm the judge, probably. Play the innocent teenager routine. She tried the apologetic angle. So sorry, living with guilt, wish she could take it back. Learned her lesson. Mom's lawyer went straight for the timeline. You said your brother attacked you around 4:15? Yes. And you said he'd been sending you threatening texts for months? Yes. What kind of phone does your brother have? Long pause. You could see her trying to calculate the right answer. I don't. A regular phone. A flip phone with no texting capability, correct? Brittany's face went red. He could have borrowed someone's phone for months of texts without you or your parents noticing? And the homework platform shows his last activity at 4:23. He was visible at the kitchen table the entire time. Multiple contradictions in your timeline. Would you like to revise your statement? Brittany started crying. Real tears this time, but not because she felt bad. Because she was caught and everyone could see it. The judge granted Mom full custody with no visitation for Dad. Decision cited his catastrophic failure of judgment, violence without evidence, reckless endangerment. You nearly killed your child. Your pride mattered more than his safety. This court will not give you an opportunity to endanger him again. During financial discovery, the attorney subpoenaed bank records and found an account Mom hadn't known existed. $12,000 in a separate account. Small investment account Mom didn't know about. The judge adjusted the division because of the hidden funds and the custody outcome. Settlement got adjusted. Mom received 68% instead of 50-50. We moved in April into a smaller 3-bedroom across town. But it was ours, mine and Mom's. No betrayal, no violence. She let me pick my room color, a dark navy, and we spent a whole weekend painting with music playing, actually enjoying being in the same space. I wore extra layers even when it wasn't cold. Couldn't help it. Brittany moved in with Dad that June. His new place was a cheap 2-bedroom with thin walls and constant noise. His real estate work dried up fast. Clients drifted. His brokerage stopped giving him leads. Friends backed away. He was barely pulling $4,000 a month, and that apartment was all he could manage. Brittany hated it. Her new school was rougher, full of kids who didn't care about her old social status. Dad kept violating the protective order. Each renewal came with another incident. In the fall of my junior year, he showed up at my robotics exhibition. Security escorted him out. The judge issued a 30-day suspended sentence and warned the next violation meant jail. That finally shut him down. Meanwhile, my life steadied. Without chaos in the house, schoolwork made sense again. Mom's place was quiet, organized, safe. I wasn't bracing for the next explosion or dissecting every word that came out of my mouth. Math finally clicked. English essays stopped feeling like uphill battles. Teachers noticed, relief in their voices they didn't try to hide. My grades shot up. B's became A's. I made the honor roll both sophomore semesters. Junior year, I joined the robotics club, made friends who didn't know about the mess, didn't care, just wanted to build things and make dumb jokes. Aurora and I grew closer. Not romantic at first, just study sessions that involved actual studying, weekend movies, homework help, and the kind of normal that felt like breathing clean air. She had this steadiness about her. When I spiraled about a comment at school or another protective order notice, she'd just sit with me, listening without trying to fix me. You're doing good, she'd say sometimes. Never dramatic, just matter of fact. Weirdly grounding. By junior year, I documented everything. Dates, times, exact wording, witnesses. Not paranoia, just survival. Brittany's attempted messages through mutual friends, Dad's voicemails, stray rumors at school. Mom and I recorded it all. I'd learned people believe evidence, not teenagers. Senior year was smoother. My reputation shifted from suspect to kid who got screwed over. Still not great, but better. Enough that some classmates finally treated me like a person again. I got into 3 solid schools. The state university offered the best scholarship, good engineering program, far enough to breathe but close enough to see Mom on weekends. Aurora was applying to pre-law programs within a few hours of me. We didn't talk about coordinating, but we both knew something was changing. I graduated 3rd in my class. Mom cried, happy, proud tears, and hugged me so hard I almost cracked a rib. First time anyone had said they were proud of me and meant it. Dad didn't come. The protective order was still active. Honestly, I preferred it that way. College was a clean slate. New city, new faces, no one whispering about that incident. For the first time since I was 14, I felt like just another student walking across campus instead of a story people. Aurora ended up at a school about an hour away. We stayed in touch, Started hanging out more during breaks, texting every day instead of every few days. Something changed sophomore year. We were studying together over winter break at her place. Chemistry textbooks spread across her kitchen table. She looked up from her notes. So, are we going to talk about this or keep pretending? Talk about what? Us. This. Whatever this is. I put down my pencil. What do you want it to be? I don't know. But I know I missed you when you were gone. And not just friend missed you. Like actually missed you. Thought about you randomly during the day, kind of missed you. Yeah, me too. So what do we do about that? I guess we figure it out. And we did. Slow. Careful. No pressure. Started dating officially spring semester. Long distance was annoying but manageable. She'd drive down some weekends. I'd drive up others. We made it work because we both wanted to. Took me months to tell her everything that happened. When I finally did, she just listened. That's really messed up, she said. Yeah, you're handling it well though. She didn't treat me differently after that. Just kept being Aurora. That meant more than I could explain. We graduated within a week of each other. Both got jobs in the same city. Found an apartment together after dating for 3 years. Mom approved. She'd always liked Aurora. Dad tried reaching out when I was 24. Letter sent to Mom's address. Long thing about regret and growth. I read it once. The words sounded right, but the tone was wrong. Still about his needs. Still making it about him. I wrote back. One sentence. I don't forgive you, and I don't want contact. He tried again 6 months later. I didn't respond. Brittany reached out around the same time. Found me through social media. Sent a message saying she wanted to talk. I blocked her without responding. Then Mom called 3 months ago. Your father's in the hospital. Heart attack. Asking for you. No. Figured you'd say that. Just wanted you to know. He died 2 days later. I didn't visit. Didn't feel guilty about it either. The funeral was small. Maybe 30 people. Dad's parents didn't come. They'd cut contact with him years ago after Mom showed them the photos. A few work acquaintances. Some distant cousins who probably felt obligated. I stood in the back. Didn't participate. Didn't sing the hymns or bow my head during prayers. Just observed. Brittany was there. She'd put on weight, had this worn-down look that comes from years of consequences catching up. Dark circles under her eyes. Cheap dress that didn't fit right. Hair dull and badly cut. After the service, she found me in the parking lot. I was heading to my car when I heard her call my name. Can we talk? She asked, voice shaky, uncertain. No. Please, just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. No. She started crying. Not the theatrical sobs from that night 12 years ago. Real tears this time. Messy. Desperate. Snot running down her face. I'm sorry, she said. I know that doesn't mean anything anymore, but I'm sorry. I was 17 and stupid, and I didn't think... You smiled, I cut her off. You watched me freeze on that porch and you smiled. Then you walked away. She flinched like I'd hit her. I know, I was awful. I've had to live with that every day. Do you know what my life has been like? Do you know? I don't care what your life has been like. We're family. No, we're not. Family doesn't do what you did. Family doesn't lie like that. Family doesn't smile while you're dying. I turned to leave. She grabbed my arm. Not hard, just desperate. Trying to keep me there. I pulled away sharply. Don't touch me. I'm trying to make this right. I'm trying... You need forgiveness. You need me to say it's okay, so you can feel better about yourself and move on with your life. But I don't owe you that. I don't owe you anything. But I've changed. I'm not that person anymore. I've been in therapy for years. I understand what I did was wrong. I understand the damage. You can't make it right. What you did doesn't get fixed with an apology and some therapy sessions. It just is. You destroyed this family. You almost killed me. And for what? So you could go to the mall? So you could avoid getting grounded? Her face crumpled. I was a kid. I didn't understand the consequences. You were 17. You knew exactly what you were doing. You tore your own shirt. You smudged your own makeup. You cried on cue. You stood there and lied to Dad's face and you were good at it. Then you smiled while I froze. That's not ignorance. That's cruelty. That's calculated. People make mistakes. That wasn't a mistake. Mistakes are accidents. You planned it. You waited until Mom was gone. You knew Dad would believe you without question. She was sobbing now. Real, ugly crying. I've changed. I swear I've changed. I'm trying to be a better person. Good for you. But I'm not interested in your redemption arc. Find someone else to absolve you. Find a priest or a therapist or whoever. But leave me out of it. I got in my car. Started the engine. She stood there in the parking lot crying. Mascara running down her face. But this time, nobody was coming to comfort her. Nobody was going to believe her story or take her side. I drove away without looking back. Aurora was waiting at our apartment. How'd it go? About how you'd expect. You okay? Yeah, I'm good. And I was. No anger, no pain. Just this calm certainty. I built a good life despite what they did. Got my degree, got a solid job, got someone who actually gives a damn about me. That's the real revenge. Not suffering, just living well. The moment that stuck with me wasn't the betrayal or the violence or the storm. It was Mom opening that door Sunday morning. The absolute determination in her eyes. Mom chose me without hesitation. Aurora chose to believe me. Those are the people who matter. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true. At 18, my parents called me a filthy failure and handed my brother $150,000 while I got kicked out with a trash bag. 20 years later, they were standing outside my gate begging me to let them inside. Hey, Reddit, so my parents had this vision of what success looked like, and I wasn't it. I, 38 male, run a custom construction business in Pennsylvania. But growing up outside Pittsburgh, I might as well have been the family stain they couldn't bleach out. My dad and mom were those type A professional snobs who measured worth in job titles and country club memberships. Dad worked in corporate finance, convinced his position made him some kind of modern aristocrat. Mom sold luxury real estate and cared more about what the neighbors thought than her own kids. Then there was Griffin, my younger brother by 3 years, who could do no wrong in their eyes. Every dinner was the same performance. Griffin's honor roll achievements, Griffin's tennis matches, Griffin's debate trophies. I'd sit there after scoring decent grades in woodshop, and they'd look through me like I was furniture. Not even good furniture, the kind you get at a going-out-of-business sale. But here's what they missed while celebrating Griffin. I could actually build things. Real things. At 8, I fixed our broken lawnmower, took it apart in the driveway, figured out the carburetor was clogged, cleaned it, reassembled everything. Got it running better than it had in years. Dad's response? Don't leave your tools lying around. The neighbors might think we can't afford a repair service. By 12, I was taking apart engines and putting them back together better than they started. My hands just understood mechanical systems before my brain caught up. Mom acted like my tool belt was contagious. Dad made me sweep sawdust off the driveway before neighbors drove by. They'd rather pay someone $200 than admit I fixed something for free. At 15, I spent a summer building a treehouse that would have made professional contractors jealous. 2 stories, real windows, proper framing, even ran electricity out there. My retired engineer neighbor became my unofficial mentor, taught me about codes, load calculations, the stuff that separates hobby builds from professional work. This could pass a building inspection, he said when I finished. Better craftsmanship than half the additions I see going up in this neighborhood. The day I finished, I was pumped. Finally, something they couldn't ignore. Dad looked at it for maybe 15 seconds. Hope you're done playing carpenter. School starts in 2 weeks and you need to focus on academics. Mom patted my head like I was 6. It's cute, sweetheart. But Griffin's already in AP courses. That night, I heard them in the kitchen. Dad's voice carried, "The neighbor's kid is taking college courses at 16, and ours is hammering together a glorified fort." Right then, I stopped caring about impressing them. Still stings a little if I'm being honest. High school cemented the dynamic. Griffin joined every college resume activity. They dropped 400 on a professional tennis racket. Threw him parties. Meanwhile, I worked weekends at the hardware store saving for basic tools because asking them for money meant lectures about investing in your future properly. When I asked for garage space to set up a workbench, the answer was flat no. Too much noise. Griffin needs quiet for his studies. So I worked in the driveway. Tools and plastic bins I had to haul out every time. Senior year, Griffin got early acceptance to Yale. My parents threw a party that would have made a wedding look modest. Dad gave a 20-minute speech about Griffin's exceptional trajectory, while Mom cried happy tears. Their gift? Brand new BMW. 3 years earlier when I graduated, we went to a chain steakhouse. They got me a used laptop. I wasn't headed to a 4-year university. I'd been accepted to a technical college with a top-rated construction management program. When I told them, Mom actually gasped like I'd announced a terminal diagnosis. Trade school? She said it like I'd chosen drugs over college. Dad's face hardened. Construction management isn't a real degree, Nolan. You're settling for less. This is disappointing. I tried explaining the job placement rates, the starting salaries, graduating debt-free. None of it registered. We raised you better than this, Mom said, and I laughed. Actually laughed. You raised Griffin. I just lived in the same house. You could feel the room go dead quiet, but I was done pretending their opinion mattered. 2 days later, Dad called me into his home office. Mom was already there, seated like this was a board meeting. Dad slid a folded paper across his desk. "We've made a decision about your living situation." I unfolded it. typed, dated. A formal 30-day notice to vacate, like I was a tenant being evicted, not their kid. You've chosen a path we can't support, Mom said, voice measured. We think it's healthiest if you establish independence now. Clean breaks allow for growth. Dad's signature at the bottom. Mom's underneath. They'd planned this. You're kicking me out. We're establishing boundaries, Dad corrected. You have 30 days. After that, the locks change. I didn't argue, didn't beg. Just folded the paper, put it in my pocket, and walked out. That night, I called my buddy Micah, asked if his couch was available. He didn't ask why, just said, keys under the mat. I spent the next 3 weeks packing my plastic bins of tools into my truck. The workbench I'd built in the garage. Left it. Let them figure out how to remove something bolted to their foundation. Set my house key on the counter on day 29. Didn't leave a note. Nothing to say. That first month was Micah's couch, gym showers before class, and gas station burritos for dinner. Everything I owned fit in the truck bed. Trade school started with zero parental support, which was fine by me. I worked full-time at the hardware store, pulling doubles when possible, sleeping maybe 5 hours a night. Meanwhile, Griffin's entire Yale experience, tuition, living expenses, study abroad trips, came fully funded. The scoreboard never changed, only the numbers did. But trade school was the first time I actually enjoyed learning. My instructors recognized talent when they saw it. My project management instructor would stay late going over advanced techniques. You've got instinct for this, Nolan. That can't be taught. I graduated top of my class with a job offer from a major construction firm before I even walked. Assistant project manager at 21. My parents didn't come to graduation. Griffin had a tennis tournament. I stopped expecting them to show up and started building the life I wanted. That's where I met Tessa. She came by the site office to drop lunch for her uncle, and I immediately fumbled trying to look smooth, knocking over an entire filing cabinet. Instead of being embarrassed for me, she helped pick everything up and told me about the time she fell face first into a fountain on a first date. We talked until her phone died. Tessa was a nursing student working night shifts to pay tuition. She understood hustle, understood proving yourself without a safety net. Our first real date lasted until 4 in the morning, just talking about dreams. She wanted pediatric trauma care. I wanted my own construction company. She never once questioned if my goals were good enough. She just asked what she needed to know to help. 6 months in, my parents insisted we come for Christmas dinner. Called 3 times. Mom sent an email about family obligations and the importance of traditions. I didn't know what came to me, but we went anyway. Predictably, the entire dinner revolved around Griffin's Yale glory. 2 solid hours of Dad grilling him about networking strategies and Mom wanting every detail about his Ivy League social life. What clubs he'd joined, what professors he'd impressed, which alumni he'd connected with. When Griffin mentioned a Goldman Sachs internship, you'd think he'd cured cancer. Dad actually stood up and shook his hand across the table like they were closing a business deal. Finally, Tessa cut in. Nolan just got promoted to full project manager, youngest in company history. Brief silence. You could hear the clock ticking. Mom. Oh, that's nice. Immediately turned back to Griffin. So tell us more about the internship. Is it paid? In the car afterward, Tessa was heated. Do they always treat you like background noise? You're the youngest project manager at one of the biggest construction firms in the state, and they didn't ask you a single follow-up question. They've always been like this. Nothing I do measures up to Griffin's resume. That's not about measurement, Nolan. That's about them being terrible parents. She was right. Should have been the last time I went back for anything. Lesson learned the hard way. By 29, I'd saved enough to start Nolan Steel Construction. Just me, my truck, and a garage full of tools. The early days were brutal. Constant stress about finding clients, covering expenses, handling every role from carpenter to accountant. Tessa, now an RN at Children's Hospital, basically kept us afloat financially those first 8 months. We got married the year before. Small ceremony, dinner at our favorite spot. My parents showed up an hour late and dipped mid-meal for a prior obligation. Griffin was networking in New York. Tessa's family actually showed. Her dad, a union electrician, pulled me aside, told me I was building something real, and slipped me $2,000 cash for tools. Starting a business with zero family help sucked. Other contractors had co-signers, borrowed equipment from family businesses, warm leads from Uncle Knows a Guy network. I had cold banks and colder rejections. 3 turned me down flat. 1 loan officer actually laughed when I mentioned I didn't have a co-signer. The 4th approved me at an interest rate that felt like robbery, but it bought a used van with 180,000 miles and enough gear to start taking jobs. First 6 months, I was operating out of that van. No office, no shop, just me, a cell phone, and a trunk full of tools. I'd quote jobs in the morning, work them until dark, then do invoicing in parking lots using the dome light. Sundays became flyers and door knocking in nicer neighborhoods, offering free estimates. Most doors closed fast. Some people looked at me like I was casing the place. A few didn't close, and those few kept me moving. I landed a kitchen renovation for a surgeon. 4-week timeline, finished in 3. Late nights hand-cutting tile until it looked deliberate, not rushed. He walked through, nodded once, and called 6 colleagues to recommend me. After that, I leaned into high-end custom work, the kind you can't fake, where details matter and YouTube certified doesn't cut it. Griffin, meanwhile, graduated Yale with honors and landed a position at a Manhattan investment firm, making 180 base plus bonuses. My parents couldn't stop talking about it. Same favorites, new price tags. Then came the dinner that torched whatever remained of our relationship. A few years into Griffin's Wall Street career, my parents insisted we come over. Called 3 times, said it was important family business. Tessa flat out refused this time, but I figured I'd hear them out and leave. My mistake. Over dessert, Dad raised his glass with this smug smile. Your mother and I have exciting news. We've decided to help Griffin purchase his first home. Manhattan real estate is competitive, so we're providing $150,000 for his down payment. I waited for the second part. The part where they'd help both sons. Crickets. My voice stayed flat. What about me? They looked confused, like they'd genuinely forgotten I might have housing needs. What about you? Dad asked. I've been saving for a house for 4 years. Business is growing, but we're still renting because housing prices keep jumping faster than I can save. You're giving Griffin $150,000 and I get nothing? Dad's expression hardened. Griffin positioned himself for success in a demanding field. He needs to live in an appropriate neighborhood for professional advancement. And what I do isn't demanding. I work 70-hour weeks building a business from scratch. Mom's smile was condescending. Dear, Griffin has a real career. You chose an alternative path. We support choices, but we can't reward everyone equally when the effort isn't comparable. Something in me went cold. Not hot. Cold. Reward? You think I'm asking for a participation trophy? I've built a successful business without a penny from you. I'm not asking for charity, just the same support you're giving him. Dad set his glass down hard. Why would we subsidize mediocrity? Griffin made something of himself. He attended a top university, secured a prestigious position. You chose manual labor over intellectual achievement. You made your bed. That word, mediocrity. After everything I'd built, after they kicked me out at 18 for choosing trade school, after I'd clawed my way up without a penny from them, still mediocrity. I didn't raise my voice, didn't flip the table, just stood up, grabbed my jacket, and looked at my father's smug expression, at my mother arranging dessert forks, like nothing had happened. We're done here, permanently. Walked out. Didn't slam the door. Didn't need to. Next day, I blocked their numbers. Deleted them from social media. When Mom tried calling from a different number, I answered once. Unless you're calling to apologize, lose my number. She sputtered about respect and family. I hung up. Cutting them out felt like dropping weight I'd been hauling my entire adult life. Suddenly, I had energy for things that mattered instead of wasting it on people who didn't. I channeled everything into work. My 3-year growth plan became a 1-year sprint. I hired my first carpenter, a talented guy with innovative ideas. Then, my detail guy, a master craftsman whose precision work became our signature. Then, 2 more guys who shared my vision for quality over quantity. Around this time, I met Brick. This 68-year-old contractor who'd run a successful business for 45 years saw something in me besides competition. He started inviting me to lunch, sharing insights about business management, client relations, navigating the industry's nonsense. You've got the hands and the head, Brick told me over burgers one afternoon. That combination is rare. Most guys have one or the other. When Brick mentioned retirement, he made an unexpected offer. I want you to buy my business when I'm ready. My son's not interested, and I'd rather see it go to someone who'll maintain our reputation. Around the same time, a property came up, 7 acres outside city limits, at a suspiciously low price because the access road was wrecked and the terrain was rough. Most buyers saw problems. I saw potential. 15 minutes from downtown but completely secluded. Partially wooded with natural clearing. Half the market rate for comparable land. The realtor thought I was crazy. The road alone will cost you 30 grand to fix. Permits for that grade are a nightmare. I smiled. I know a guy. The guy was me. And Brick. And about 600 hours of weekend work. More importantly, I could envision exactly what I wanted to build. Not just a house. A statement. Proof that I'd succeeded on my terms. Every beam, every joint, every finish would be my own work. No one could take credit for it. No one could claim they helped. I leveraged everything to secure that land. Tessa was nervous, but supportive. If anyone can make that work, it's you. First year was hell. Weekends and most nights were spent clearing land and rebuilding that access road, a 300-foot steep mess that turned to mud every time it rained. Some nights I'd get home so tired I'd fall asleep in the truck before making it inside. Brick lent me equipment and taught me how to run it. My first carpenter and my detail guy showed up most Saturdays, working for food because they bought into the plan. Connections helped, an excavation hookup for cheaper materials, and reclaimed barn timber through a friend. We hauled 30 huge beams that became the centerpiece of the great room. Weekdays, I grew the business. Nights, I drafted plans, modern and clean, heavy on custom woodwork and smart builds. 18 months in, Nolan Steel Construction was up to 8 employees with a wait list. Road and foundation were done. I was pulling 80-hour weeks, tired but finally building something that was mine. Griffin was still posting vacation flexes while needing our parents to float his housing. Cute. The stress didn't stop. A major client paid 3 months late, so I took a bridge loan. Lumber spiked. Tessa's car blew a transmission. We handled it anyway because that's what we did. 2 years after buying the land, a developer hired us for an 8-month whole home renovation with real budget and real freedom. The finished house got featured in a regional architecture publication. After that, the phone didn't stop ringing, and for the first time we got to pick projects instead of begging for them. 9 years after cutting contact, our home was nearing completion. The exterior was finished, aggressive combination of stone, steel, and cedar that looked like it grew from the landscape while making a bold statement. Inside, we were on final details. The business had grown to 12 employees, with a reputation as one of the premier custom builders in Western Pennsylvania. Our workshop had become a destination for clients wanting to see craftsmanship firsthand. Through it all, my parents remained silent. They'd apparently decided to have one son. Fine by me. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang. Griffin calling. We'd barely spoken in years. Nolan, just drove past your property. His voice wasn't shocked. It was calculating. How big is this operation? What's something like this worth? No greeting. No, how are you? Straight to valuation. Why do you care? I'm just saying, 7 acres, custom build, workshop facility. That's not a small investment. You're doing better than Dad thinks. I leaned against the workbench. What Dad thinks isn't my concern. And it shouldn't be yours either. Look, I'm in town meeting a client. Mind if I swing by? I'd like to see what you've built. No. Silence. He wasn't expecting that. Come on, Nolan. I'm not asking for a tour of Fort Knox. Just want to catch up. You want to appraise the place for Mom and Dad? Answer's still no. He tried a different angle. Fine. Can we at least grab coffee? There's a Wawa off Route 30. I need to talk to you about something. I could have said no to that too. But something in his voice, the slight crack under the finance bro confidence, made me curious. Not sympathetic. Curious. 20 minutes! I'm not sitting around waiting. The Wawa parking lot. Very Pennsylvania. Griffin's BMW looked out of place next to pickup trucks and work vans. A guy in Carhartt overalls glanced at it, then at Griffin, then went back to his hoagie like he'd seen everything he needed to see. Griffin was leaning against the driver's door when I pulled up, looking like he hadn't slept in days. The suit was expensive but wrinkled. The kind of wrinkled that happens when you sleep in something because you don't have anywhere else to be. The watch was still flashy, but the man wearing it looked deflated, like someone had let the air out of the golden boy. I grabbed a coffee inside, took my time, let him wait. When I came out, he was checking his phone with that anxious compulsion people develop when their whole life is falling apart one notification at a time. He didn't waste time on small talk. The firm's pushing me out. Not partner material. My apartment's underwater. I owe more than it's worth and the co-op board is threatening foreclosure. Girlfriend's gone. Took the furniture and the dog. And I'm on 3 medications just to function through a normal day. I sipped my coffee. Waited. Let the silence do the work. I need a landing pad, he continued. You need someone who understands business development. I could help you scale this operation. I'm good with numbers, strategy, client relations. The business side you probably hate doing. You want a job. I want an opportunity. I studied him. Same Griffin who'd enjoyed being the favorite. Same Griffin who'd never once defended me to our parents. Now he was struggling and suddenly remembered he had a brother. I don't trust you, I said. You spent 30 years on their side. I wasn't on anyone's side. I was just benefiting. Yeah, I noticed. He didn't argue. Couldn't. Here's what I'll offer, I said. Nothing. His face fell. Nolan, I'm not your landing pad. I'm not your backup plan. And I'm definitely not your ticket back into Mom and Dad's good graces. I pulled out my phone, typed for a moment, then showed him the screen. 3 recruiters who specialize in finance backgrounds transitioning to other industries. a temp agency that places admin workers if you need cash fast, and the name of a therapist Tessa's colleague recommended handles career crisis stuff. He stared at the screen like I'd handed him a rejection letter, which I guess I had. That's it? A list of phone numbers? That's more than you ever gave me. When they kicked me out, you were at tennis camp. Never called. Never checked in. 9 years of silence, and now you want to be brothers because your life fell apart. I finished my coffee. Good luck, Griffin. Genuinely. But you're not my problem to solve. I drove off, watched him shrink in my rearview mirror, still standing by his BMW in a Wawa parking lot, holding his phone like he didn't know what to do with it. Didn't feel good, didn't feel bad either. Just felt like the right call. 2 weeks later, my intercom buzzed. Saturday afternoon, middle of sanding down a custom mantelpiece. I checked the camera feed. Dad's Mercedes at the gate, Mom in the passenger seat, reapplying lipstick like she was about to walk into an open house showing. 9 years of silence, and they just showed up like nothing had happened. Tessa looked at the monitor over my shoulder. You don't have to answer that. No, but I want this documented. I pressed the intercom button. This property has audio and video recording. State your business. Before anyone starts screaming about consent laws in the comments, my lawyer confirmed the signage plus setup was fully compliant for Pennsylvania. Moving on. Dad's voice crackled through, already annoyed. Nolan, don't be ridiculous. We're your parents. Open the gate and let us in. I asked you to state your business. We want to see the house. Griffin mentioned how impressive it is, and we thought it was time to see what you've accomplished. Everything you are started under our roof. The least you owe us is a tour. Griffin mentioned it. Not surprised. The gate stays closed. If you have something to say it through the intercom. Mom leaned toward the speaker. Nolan, please, this is silly. We drove 45 minutes to get here. Can't we just come in and talk like a normal family? We gave you the discipline and work ethic that made this possible. We stopped being a normal family when you handed me a typed eviction notice at 18. And again when you called my business mediocrity to my face while handing Griffin $150,000. You want to talk? You can do it from there. Dad's face on the camera was turning red. We came here to reconnect, and you're treating us like solicitors. I'm treating you like people who've proven they can't be trusted. You want a relationship? Here are the terms. Written acknowledgement of how you treated me. Not, we made mistakes. Specific admission that you treated me as less than for choosing my own path. Delivered through my lawyer. His card is in the mailbox at the end of the drive. No financial entanglement. No surprise visits. Everything in writing. This is absurd, Dad sputtered. We're not negotiating with our own son through attorneys? Then we're done here. Drive safe. I clicked off the intercom. Watched on the camera as Dad argued with the speaker for another 3 minutes. Realized I wasn't responding, then finally got back in the car. Mom was crying. The calculated kind she'd perfected over decades. They sat there for another 5 minutes before finally driving away. I saved the footage, documented the time, date, and what was said. Added it to a file I'd started keeping. Not because I was paranoid. Because I knew them. Should have trusted that instinct more. 3 weeks later, Mom's Facebook post went up. So proud of our son Nolan and his beautiful custom-built home. The family construction tradition continues. Hashtag proud parents. Hashtag family business. Hashtag Nolan Steel Construction. She'd tagged my business page. Used photos I'd never seen her take. Aerial shots of the property. The workshop exterior. My company trucks at various job sites around Grandview Heights. Client addresses were visible in some shots. License plates. Project details. Even a quote from an upcoming Pittsburgh home and design feature that hadn't been published yet. Information she shouldn't have had access to. I did some digging. Turns out permit records are public in Pennsylvania. She'd pulled every permit my company had filed in the past 3 years. Addresses, project scopes, estimated values. Easy for someone in real estate to access. And Mom knew exactly how to work the county record system. She'd probably done it 100 times for her own clients. The aerial shots? Drone photographer she worked with regularly for listing photos told him it was for a family surprise project. He didn't charge her. Probably thought he was doing something nice for a colleague. The magazine quotes came from the photographer who'd shot our feature. Mom had contacted him claiming to be Nolan's mother wanting to surprise him with prints for his birthday. He'd shared preview images and some interview excerpts because he thought he was helping a sweet mom do something thoughtful. Guy felt terrible when I called. Said he'd never do something like that again without verification. Not his fault. Normal people don't assume mothers are running reconnaissance operations on their own children. The job site photos were more concerning. One of my crew mentioned seeing a Mercedes parked down the street during our Grandview Heights project last month. Different days, different times, but always the same car. They'd assumed it was a curious neighbor. Luxury neighborhoods, People watch construction crews all the time. Now I knew better. They'd been tailing my trucks, taking photos from public roads where I couldn't do anything about it, building a dossier over weeks. All so Mom could post on Facebook like she'd been there all along, like she'd supported me from day one, like mediocrity had never left her mouth. The audacity of it still gets me if I think about it too long. Client information was now publicly exposed on a post shared with her 1,500 friends, half of them real estate agents. Our Grandview Heights clients chose us because we're discreet. Now their projects were props in my mother's desperate attempt to rewrite history. One client called within hours. "Nolan, why is my house on some woman's Facebook page?" I didn't rage. I went straight to the boring stuff that ruins people. First, I got ahead of it. Sent a professional email to every affected client explaining that a third party had obtained project information through public records and was misrepresenting her relationship with my company. Apologized for the invasion of their privacy. Offered a consultation credit toward future work. Every single one responded with support. Second, my own post. 3 hours later, Nolan Steel Construction was built without family financial support or involvement. Any representation otherwise is inaccurate. We take client privacy seriously and are addressing unauthorized disclosure of project information. One statement. Professional. Let them explain that to their country club friends. Third, I called my lawyer. Cease and desist letter sent that afternoon, not just for false affiliation with my business, but citing misrepresentation that could confuse consumers, unauthorized use of my company name and trademark, and disclosure of client information obtained through deceptive means. Fourth, and this one I'm proud of, I filed a complaint with the Pennsylvania Real Estate Commission. Mom held an active broker's license, using deceptive practices to obtain confidential information, then publicly disclosing client addresses and project details. Ethics violation. Maybe nothing would come of it, but it would sit in her file, and her brokerage would receive a copy. The Facebook post came down within 6 hours. Facebook didn't magically behave out of kindness. I reported it, clients reported it, and her brokerage called her the same day. Turns out realtors don't love liability. 2 weeks later, the Pittsburgh Home and Design feature dropped. 8-page spread showcasing our historic renovation project. Photos of our workshop. A profile on my background that included interviews with 3 clients and 2 employees. And one line my parents couldn't spin. Nolan built the business from the ground up without family support, crediting his success to mentors, his dedicated team, and his wife Tessa, a pediatric trauma nurse. The writer asked about my background, and I answered it flat. They printed it. Not my problem if it made certain people look bad. The magazine hit every waiting room in Grandview Heights, every country club lobby, every luxury real estate office where Mom's colleagues flipped through it between showings. The same colleagues who'd seen her Facebook post claiming credit weeks earlier. Now they were reading in print that Nolan Steel Construction had been built without family support, that the son she'd never mentioned, the one she'd kicked out for choosing trade school, had become one of the premier custom builders in western Pennsylvania, and that he'd specifically, publicly, credited everyone except his parents. Their carefully constructed narrative didn't just collapse, it detonated in the exact circles they'd spent 30 years trying to impress. I heard later from Tessa's network that the magazine became a topic at the country club. People asking Mom directly, "Wait, isn't this your son? Why does it say no family support?" No good answer for that one. Either you admit you didn't support him, or you admit you lied on Facebook. Pick your poison. 3 weeks after the magazine dropped, Saturday afternoon, security camera recorded everything. Dad's Mercedes pulling up to the gate, him getting out, gripping the iron bars like he wanted to tear them apart. 10 minutes of yelling, threats about lawyers, accusations of poisoning Griffin against them, rambling about how they built him into the man he became, how this property existed because of values they instilled. Mom stood by the car, looking mortified. At one point, she tried pulling his arm. He shook her off so hard she stumbled against the Mercedes. My neighbor was trimming hedges across the road. His wife came out onto the porch to watch. A family down the road stopped their car at the end of their driveway. Even from inside, I could see people gathering. I didn't engage, didn't go to the gate, didn't give him the satisfaction of a reaction. Watched from the security monitor, confirmed everything was recording clean, then called the sheriff's non-emergency line, gave them the address and plate number, described the situation calmly, requested a deputy for a trespassing complaint. Deputy arrived 14 minutes later. Dad was hoarse by then, suit dusty from pressing against the bars, sweat staining his collar despite the cool weather. His tie was loosened. His hair was a mess. He looked nothing like the composed corporate finance guy who'd handed me that eviction notice 20 years ago. He tried to pull rank, started explaining this was a family matter and private business that didn't require law enforcement. Dropped his job title. Mentioned the country club like it was supposed to mean something. The deputy didn't care. Didn't even blink. Clipboard came out. Case number. Formal warning. Dad went quiet in that "I've never been told no" way. You could see his brain short-circuiting, trying to figure out why his usual tactics weren't working. Dad sputtered about family rights, private property exceptions for parents, started quoting things that sounded like they came from a Google search done in the car on the way over. The deputy actually looked bored. Deputy wasn't having it. Handed Dad a copy of the warning. Official paperwork with a case number and everything. Dad stared at it like he couldn't process what he was holding. A man of his position, his standing, being served trespass papers by a county deputy in front of the neighbors he'd been planning to impress. Mom was already in the car with the door closed, face buried in her hands. She knew what this meant for their reputation. They drove off. My neighbor was still watching from his porch. So was everyone on that road who'd heard the screaming. Later, Tessa heard through the hospital grapevine that Mom had been bragging at the country club days before about reconnecting with Nolan and visiting his beautiful estate soon. Now their neighbors had witnessed Dad screaming at a locked gate while a deputy issued a trespass warning. Word travels fast in those circles. Mom's real estate colleagues started asking questions. Dad's golf buddies got quiet. The people they'd spent decades impressing now had a very different picture. I didn't ruin them. I just stopped covering for them. Their obsession with appearances did the rest. The following months were quieter. Better. I hired a proper operations manager, someone with no family ties, no divided loyalties, just competence and a paycheck. He came from a competitor who'd underpaid him for years. Within 3 months, he'd reorganized our filing system, streamlined scheduling, and identified cost inefficiencies I'd been too busy to notice. Brick officially retired that spring, selling me his client list and equipment at a fair price. We'd grown to 15 employees with clients driving from 3 states away. Griffin tried calling twice more. I didn't answer. He sent a letter, handwritten, 5 pages, full of apologies and explanations about pressure from Dad. I read it once, noted that it still focused on his journey, his growth. Not much acknowledgement of the actual harm, just a lot of explaining why he'd done what he'd done. I shredded it. He wasn't wrong for trying. I just wasn't obligated to respond. Tessa got pregnant that summer. We didn't tell my parents. Didn't tell Griffin either. They all found out anyway, probably through the grapevine. They tried visiting the hospital after the baby was born. All 3 of them, parents and Griffin, showed up together like some kind of reconciliation ambush, dressed like they were attending a charity gala instead of a maternity ward. Security stopped them in the lobby. I'd already put all 3 names on the no-visit list. 2 nurses told Tessa they'd seen the whole thing. Dad arguing with security about grandparent rights and how, "This is our granddaughter, you can't keep us from her." Mom crying in the waiting room, making sure everyone could see, fishing for sympathy from other families. Griffin standing off to the side looking uncomfortable, probably realizing this wasn't going to work, but not having the spine to tell them. All of them eventually leaving when a supervisor explained, firmly, professionally, and very publicly, that patient wishes regarding visitors were final, and that continuing to cause a disturbance would result in them being escorted out by hospital security. The story spread through the hospital within a day, then through Tessa's professional network, nurses and doctors, who all knew families in Grandview Heights, then back to their social circles. Within a week, the story had made a complete loop. The couple who'd been bragging about their successful builder son had been escorted out of a maternity ward. 6 months after my daughter was born, the business continued growing. 23 employees. Considering a second location, booked solid for 3 years out. Dad tried calling twice more, left voicemails about being willing to overlook my behavior if I was ready to be reasonable. Same old conditions dressed up as olive branches. I didn't respond. There was nothing to discuss. Griffin sent another letter. Something about wanting to meet his niece, about how family should matter more than mistakes. I sent it back unopened. Return to sender. No explanation needed. The gate camera caught Dad driving past twice in 1 week, never stopping. Just slowing, looking, then accelerating away. The footage went into the documentation file, just in case. My neighbor mentioned he'd seen them parked down the road one afternoon, just sitting there in their Mercedes, watching the property from a distance. Not close enough to trigger the trespass warning. Just close enough to look pathetic. 2 people who'd spent their entire lives obsessing over what the neighbors thought, now sitting in a parked car staring at a gate they couldn't enter. My neighbor said they sat there for almost an hour before finally driving away. He felt bad for them. I told him not to. Last month, Mom left a voicemail. Something about wanting to talk and work things out, and how life is too short for this. She mentioned Dad's health. She mentioned missing out on being grandparents. She mentioned that they'd reflected on things, and wanted to move forward together as a family. I texted back 4 words. Send it to my lawyer. Haven't heard from any of them since. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true.